What's up, guys? Today I'm going to teach you how to turn these into these with basic skills. Stay tuned. Greetings, nerds, and welcome back to MK Mini Studio. This episode is really more of an instruction course for beginners, going over basics like dry brushing, washes, glow effects, and OSL. We're going to talk about each of these in detail as the video goes, but starting here with the two models I'm using, you can see they're both already primed in black, except on this model I have left intentionally some of it not black. These are the parts that are going to give a green glow look to later, but more about that to come. So first, let's talk about dry brushing. Specifically, we're going to talk about what kind of a brush you need when you're dry brushing. So basically, any brush that has short and stiff bristles is going to work great. This brush specifically is a dry brush put out by the Army Painter, but you could use pretty much anything that meets that criteria like this one. It's a good idea to have them in different sizes. We'll get to that later. Now, dry brushing is a technique that is used to help bring out the edge detail and give a highlight to the figure you're working on. And one of the things that I think works especially well with dry brushing is metallics. That's why I've chosen these two metal boys to demonstrate this technique on. And it's pretty simple. This version of dry brushing, there is more than one. I'm going to give what I feel is the most basic version. Basically, you're going to take your brush that you're working with, don't get it wet, but keep it dry, then you dip it in the paint, and then wipe off pretty much all of the paint from it using a paper towel or something absorbent like that. And once you've wiped off most of the paint, you just brush on the model, and as you can see, it leaves paint behind on the raised edges, but it won't get down into the cracks and crevices. I'm going to be taking two different approaches here. On this model, we're just going to dry brush it. You can see here, this is why you would want different sized brushes when you're working, because with the first one, it was larger and covered more surface area more easily, but it was too big to get in all of the spaces that I needed, so I came back in with the smaller brush to fill in the gaps where the big one couldn't reach. But on this second guy, we're going to use a heavier dry brush, so whenever I've wiped the paint off of the brush this time, I left more of it on the brush than the other one. On the first guy, removed almost all of it. On this one, left more paint. It's going to get more saturated with that gold paint. And the reason we're doing that is because this guy is going to get a wash, our second technique, and the first guy is not. So looking at them side by side, you can already see the one is more saturated, a brighter gold, and there's less shadow detail in it, and the other is not quite as heavy on the gold, but there is more of the shadow detail present on it. Here we're continuing the same dry brushing process, but with just silver to paint the guns. Now that the dry brushing is out of the way, we're going to talk about a wash. So a wash is basically a heavily pigmented, very thin paint. The idea is you slop it all over the model and it's going to settle into the recesses and cracks of the model to emphasize and bring more detail out in the shadow areas of the model. What happens is, because it's runny, it flows down into those places, but then as it dries, and it does take a while to dry, the water evaporates, leaving the paint behind in those recessed areas. Now, you can see I really just slathered the whole model with it, and whenever you're done putting the wash on the model, it's important to go back over and examine it for anywhere where the wash is pooling excessively in some of the recessed areas. And you can very simply clean it up like this. I just have a brush and I'm touching the tip of it into those pooling places to wick away the excess and get rid of it. And the more you do this, the more you'll know what to look out for and how much is too much. The more you practice, the better you'll get a feel for it. Moving on, we're going to the glowing step of the project, and really to achieve the glowing look, you also need the OSL, which is the next step. More about that to come, but if we want to achieve a nice, bright, glowing look to something, it's important that whatever color you want it to be in the end, you start with a nice, bright, white base color. You see, your base coat will influence the final overall color of whatever you end with. So if you start with something dark, like a black or brown, your top coat is going to be much darker. That's why we want to start with a white to give us a bright finished color. Here, I'm just putting my model in a paint handle to avoid rubbing off any paint by mistake as I'm handling it. And what I'm showing you here is the fact that you don't need a paint handle per se. You can make your own with just a bottle of paint you got laying around and some sticky tack. Back to the awesome glowing gun on our model, I'm going to continue painting not only the connection cable white, but also the barrel of the gun and some other parts, especially the tip of the barrel. I also want the eye to be nice and bright, so I'm gonna start that with a white base coat, and then this little pressure gauge just needs to be white in general, so I painted it white too. Starting with the white base coat to make your colors nice and bright, again, in my opinion, a must-do for anything that you want glowing, but also works really well for like fire and things like that. So here we go, painting the eye red now, and a little portion of the pressure gauge as well. For ease of clarifying which models I'm talking about, instead of just saying this model and that model all the time, I'm going to name these models now. So we have Abbot and Costello. That should clear some things up. The reason I switched to working on Costello is because Abbot here was waiting for his wash to dry, and now that it's been dried, we can move on to the next steps. So here I'm giving a dry brush, you guessed it, to the entire model of Abbot. I started with my brightest gold, but added some of my brightest silver to it so that it would show extra well on all the edge highlights, which at this stage in the painting process, the purpose of dry brushing is to bring out the edge highlights. Here I'm just adding some color to Abbot's machine gun rounds. And don't forget to paint the inside of the barrel black. So at this point, I could have called Abbot done, but I was feeling like he was a little too monotonous in his golden appearance, so I decided to paint these fans on his back in a silver color. And you could also do this in any of the joints if you wanted to add even more variety and break up the colors a touch more. After applying a dark silver, I went in with just an edge highlight of a bright silver. And with that final detailing, Abbot is all finished, and we're ready to move back to Costello. So, picking up where we left off on the glow effect, in order to keep things even more bright on top of the white base coat we started with, what we're going to do is keep the paint extra thin or as translucent as possible. And my secret weapon here is ink rather than paint, which, just like with a wash, I dispense into a poppet to get it loaded up on my paintbrush bristles for easier application. Now then, if you don't have ink, that's fine. You could just take whatever suitable color paint you have and thin it down, almost like a homemade wash. And as you can see, the translucence of the ink lets the white show through even more for an extra bright appearance. And so it's just a matter of applying this color to everywhere where you've got your white base coat at. Alright, now before we move on to the OSL portion of this paint tutorial, it is crucial that we go ahead and paint the bases, or it's crucial that we paint Costello's base before doing the OSL step. For my just regular kind of dirt color, I like to mix a gray and a brown together and coat the whole base material with that. And once that base color is down, we're going to use dry brushing for more highlight and detail. I'm going to come in with a light colored brown and hit all of the surface. Oh, sorry, Abbot. Anyways, once the whole base has been dry brushed with the light brown, I'm going to come in with an even lighter color and give a second coat of dry brushing, but this time I'm going to be intentional to get the outside edges and not paint what's under the model. Again, that's going to be shaded, so it's not going to be gaining the same light as the rest. Alright, with that out of the way, we're finally on to the OSL portion. Now, for those of you who don't know, OSL stands for Object Source Lighting, which basically just means something is producing light other than the sun or whatever normal light source you would have, and is giving a lighting effect because of that. So in this case, our OSL is coming from the green glow from this compression cannon. In order to simulate that light, we're going to again be using dry brushing and get some green, some light green paint. You don't want it too dark. And then dry brushing around all of the places where that light would be hitting, as you can see here. And especially on this guy, because he's made of metal, he's going to be picking up extra light because of the reflective properties of the metal. Alright, I know that was quick and simple, but that's pretty much all there is to it. You could use OSL for, again, things like fire. If somebody's holding a torch or next to a candle or holding a lightsaber or something like that, is another great opportunity to use some OSL effects and basically just repeat that same process, but with whatever colors are appropriate. As you can see, that's both models finished. So the last thing to do is paint the rim black, and then we're all done and ready for the final reveal. Alright guys, I sure hope you learned a lot from this and see just how versatile dry brushing can be. Has many great applications to be taken advantage of. Again, all this stuff really pretty simple, pretty quick and easy, but they are things that will really up the level of your painting. Special thanks to Warlord Games for sending these heavy automated infantry to me. If you are interested in getting some of these for yourself or something else from Warlord's range, there's a link on my page to go browse their things. That's all for this one. Let me know if you've got any questions about anything, or if you liked it, please let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe and all those good things. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, be blessed and happy painting.